Happy Tuesday, everybody. Today is December 8th, 2020, and today's episode is all about our Kansas deer camp. Welcome to the Fall Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Blasey, and today is episode 137, and I'm chipper right now. I'm chipper. I'm happy. Today is a special episode because today I'm driving home from a long trip in Kansas. It's been a long fall, day 50 or 60 some. I got to go back and look how many days I've been on the road in the last 2 months. But today I'm in a truck. That's why you probably got a lot of noises going on around us. But today I have Keegan Zemer, my coworker, one of my good friends with me. And we just came out of Iowa, driving into Illinois, heading home. We got 6 more hours left. So we decided, hey, why not do a podcast? And I feel really bad to all the listeners out there because I have not had an episode in the last 2 weeks. And a lot of people have been reaching out wanting to listen to the Fall Podcast. And I am very sorry. I have had no time. Literally, we've been hunting basically daylight to dark. And if we're not hunting midday, we're doing something on the farm and just trying to kill deer. That's all we're trying to do. And that's what today's episode is going to be about. Keegan and I are going to talk about our Kansas trip. We had 5 gun tags, 2 bow tags down there. And we're going to talk about Kansas. And it was a good trip, a fun trip. I killed a really good deer. I can't wait to tell everybody about that. I did a post on Instagram about it, and everybody's DM. I say everybody. There was like 3 people. I hate when everybody says it's like everybody's DMing me. Like, how many is everybody, you know? It's like 3 people DM me, and we're like, I can't wait to hear the podcast about it. So here it is. Hopefully get this out soon. But, yeah. So if anybody out there that has not heard Keegan, he's been on quite a few of these podcasts, actually. And we're actually going to do another one probably right after this because Keegan killed a really good mule deer this year in Colorado. And not only is it a good mule deer, but there's a cool story to go with it. And we'll get into the weeds about that, but it was a collared mule deer, and he's got all the data from it. So it was pretty cool to, like, dissect that data and figure out how far that deer was actually moving in the summer and the winter. But just for a brief bio, Keegan, anybody out there that hasn't heard the last couple podcasts with you on them, kind of give them a rundown, elevator pitch of who you are.
Sure.
While you're driving.
I'm Aaron's friend and coworker. I do all of the digital presence for Humanimal. So social, email, affiliate. That's kind of my jam. And part-time, I would say amateur filmer.
I'd say you're a step above greenhorn.
Yeah.
I don't know. That could be amateur, I guess.
That was me last year. This year I learned to hit the record button a few more times and put the tree arm in a somewhat respectable spot. So.
Oh, man.
But yeah, that's me.
That's you in a nutshell.
Yep.
I'm
a happy-go-lucky guy. I'm a cheesehead
from Wisconsin. So.
Yep.
Well, good deal. We are going to get into the weeds on this one. So, I mean, last year, just to kind of go back and give a brief story about who got gun tags this year and why they did and all that stuff. So last year, Chris, Casey, myself, and that was it, got bow tags. Cody and JB, they did not draw bow tags. Lee, Keegan, and Adam got gun tags last year, and you guys went down and killed 3 awesome bucks. Mm-hmm. It was the first time we've ever gun hunted that farm and realized, like, okay, we need to gun hunt the farm more because it's really fun.
Yeah.
So this year, Adam, Lee, and Keegan got bow tags. Me, Chris, Casey, Jason, Cody got gun tags. So coming into the season, season started on the 2nd, December 2nd. And I believe it's 11-day season, I think. I could be wrong with that. 11 or 12, 10, 11, 12-day season. Well, we come down here, and we got here 3 days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 3 days before gun opener. So Lee had a bow tag. So Lee decided, him and I, we were like going to jump in a stand and try to fill his bow tag. So we went to a stand called Mission Impossible first morning and had a slow sit, right off the gate, basically. But we figured it was going to be late movement. Didn't know if the deer were going to be rutting anymore. Figured that there might be like another hot doe that might come in and might check. But we were in a high doe concentrated area.
Yeah, I think before you get into this story, you should touch on the fact that Lee and Adam were down in Kansas.
Sure.
What, a week and a half ago?
Yep.
2 weeks ago?
Yeah, so Lee and Adam did come down for bow season basically from like the 14th of November to like the 22nd of November.
Yeah,
something like that.
Killer week.
And had an unbelievable week. Adam missed a giant, a booner, shot right over his back. And they just saw like 3 huge deer in the 160s.
Bucks
if not bigger.
day.
Yeah, bucks every day, chasing everywhere. It was like the week. My week I had last year in Iowa with the Hambino, that was like what they described this week being. Like bucks every sit, shooters, running everywhere. So we're like, oh, hopefully it holds true and a little bit of the rut might be going on and we can get a little bit of that action, like the bucks still on their feet in daylight.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of preempting like coming into this gun season. So Lee and I were in the stand. Mission Impossible. I'm sorry, Adam did kill that first trip. He did kill.
They gained good intel, and Adam killed.
Yep.
So,
Adam did kill.
Trip.
Yep, Lee didn't kill. So Lee and I get in the stand, and it was, I can't remember what time it was. It was like mid-morning. All of a sudden he looks over and he's like, shooter, like big buck, coming through the cedars. Deer comes in, big, old, like 8-pointer. He's kind of broke up a little bit. A lot of our deer broke up right now. It's and we'll get more into that in a little bit. But huge, old. You can just tell he's old, mature deer. Wide deer comes in, great footage. Lee puts a good shot on him. He runs like 30 yards and dies. So we're like on a high. Killed a buck first morning. We just got into camp the night before and got one down. So like, great way to start camp. So now we got like 2 days just to get everything else dialed, trail cams, blinds where we want them, and I don't know, just kind of get into the groove. It's deer camp, it's opening day. It's the way I was so excited for it. It was just like back in high school when, in Michigan, November 15th, like opening day of rifle season. I haven't been that excited for opening day of rifle season in a long time. So that was exciting. But, so yeah, I mean, that was kind of the start of it. And then you and Cody came down Tuesday. You guys had some things to do.
Yep.
Came down Tuesday. Opener was Wednesday morning. So Tuesday night, Casey decided to, throw a little game in there.
Yeah.
So it was like a card game. And I was out in La La Land, so I'll let Keegan kind of explain. I just pulled a card.
Yeah.
So Keegan was in it.
Yep. So it was 5 guys, cards ace, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it was everybody picked for the first time to draw ace, low card wins, to draw again for first choice of stand, which I thought was a little
weird,
little aggressive that you draw to draw your card, but that's how it went. So I think the first person to draw the very first card, so the person to draw for the next one was Cody, right?
I think so. Cody drew.
So
first,
Cody picked first, and I'm standing in the room behind him, and before everybody announced their cards, I saw what card Cody had, and I'm like, okay. But then everybody else picks their cards, and whoever, I think it was Casey, goes, all right, who's got the ace? And Cody goes, yep, I got the ace.
So that's first pick. I got the first round. I got the 3, so I got to pick the third.
The
time.
third card for the next one.
Yep.
So the next round, you pick your card to then pick your stand.
Yep.
And
first dibs.
Yep,
so whoever gets the ace gets to go wherever he wants.
Yep. So that one, Cody picks his card. I think second pick was Chris.
And Chris wasn't going to hunt opening morning because in his story, we might get into that later in a different podcast, but his gun had just showed up. And the reason why his gun showed up is because one of his really good friends, he was I got a phone call coming in. So unprofessional. Come on. Come on, Mama Zemer. No, one of his really good friends had passed away a couple years ago, and his son sent him his Winchester gun to use. So Chris didn't get the gun in time, so he didn't have it sighted in, didn't want to hunt opening morning. So his plan was to film Cody.
Yep.
Okay, then pick up on where Cody.
Yep. So Chris was number 2. Number 3 was Casey.
Me.
You were number 3?
No. Okay.
For pick and stands.
Pick and stands would have been.
I think it was Casey, and then JB.
Yes.
Yep. So then Casey picked 3rd, followed by
JB,
and
then I got the last.
Aaron
pick.
had last pick. Casey goes, all right, who's got the ace this time? Cody.
So, and now we have this stand called the Igloo Stand, and there's a deer there that we call the Warhorse. That deer has been around on the farm since 2017 that we know of. And in 2017, we figured he was a mature deer at that time, so 4 or 5 years old. He was just always a big deer, kind of deformed rack. He got injured maybe or something like that. So
he had a growth in his brain.
He did. When we caped him out, he had a growth. He had a tumor in his brain, like in his skull plate.
Yep.
So cat's out of the bag. Cody kills him. But anyway, so when Lee and Adam were here bow hunting earlier, they had an encounter with him, and Lee actually passed him up. Could have killed him and passed him up.
He's huge. Lee said he didn't think his arrow would make it through him.
Yeah, Lee said, I didn't think my arrow would penetrate him. But it just was a deer that Lee didn't really want to, pursue. So it was a good deer for Cody. Cody hasn't killed a lot of deer, and that deer is pretty frequent in that area. So we're like, Cody goes, I'm going to go to Igloo. Yep. Chris opted out of opening morning, so he didn't pick. So Casey got to pick next.
Yep. And Casey picked 4 corners.
4 corners, which is on the intel Adam and Lee were giving us, is the spot where they've been seeing most of the mature shooters.
Mm-hmm. Especially Arkansas Dave, which I think
it's probably the biggest deer on the farm.
Is who Casey was really targeting and hoping to see. Big, was he main 10 with a bunch of trash?
Yep. Yeah. Probably in the high 160s, might touch 170.
Yep.
Yeah, so he picked, and then JB picked, and he picked the junkyard, which is proven historic, is like, we've killed quite a few deer in the junkyard, and it's just, you just never know what's going to show up in there.
Mm-hmm.
So he went to the junkyard, so then I got to pick. And I picked below it's called the Rockstar Stand. This is where Adam killed his deer. So Lee was filming me. Chris was filming Cody. Keegan was filming Casey. And Thad, one of our other guys, new guy, was filming JB. So opening morning comes. We go to our stands.
Yep.
I did not see one deer. I got skunked for the first time this year. Did not see one deer. So I'm like, well, go figure. The guy that gets to pick last doesn't see a deer. Gets Garholt. Cody killed the Warhorse first thing.
At 7:17.
Yeah, it was like right after shooting like started, like shooting time.
Yep.
Warhorse shows up. Basically, the best you could script it.
Yeah.
Blows him down.
Yep.
So 1 on the board. And then it wasn't too much longer. JB killed in the junkyard. Big 9-pointer.
907.
907. Was it 907?
Yep.
Okay. So he killed like a big 9, probably mid 140s, 9-pointer.
Mm-hmm.
And that was basically it. For that day, I went to the Beat Lab blind that night.
On JB's quick. So it was funny because the night before, Lee said, 9 o'clock you will kill in the junkyard.
Yep.
I remember him saying that. And then JB later that afternoon when, everybody, Cody and him brought his bucks back, we had lunch, they told their stories, whatever, and JB's like, yeah, we were just starting to say how Lee was wrong. It's like, yeah, he was off by 7 minutes.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, that was pretty good.
That's pretty cool. But, yeah, then you moved.
I went to the Beat Lab blind that night, and Beat Lab is... Chris hunted the Beat Lab a lot the last couple years, saw shakes out of there a couple times, the biggest deer that we've ever had on the farm, 190s, might be 200. Saw sundown in there a couple times. So I was like, I really don't know what I'm going to see in here. You know, it's a big CRP bottom surrounded by an island of cedar trees with a pond dam, and
it's a cool spot.
It's a beautiful spot.
Overlooking a big cornfield down below.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I can cover a lot of ground.
Yep.
And so I went there, and wouldn't you know it, I mean, a buck comes out of the island, and I go, Lee, big deer. Or no, Lee saw him first, I'm sorry. And Lee goes, looks like a shooter, AB. And I picked the binos up. I'm like, okay, yep, looks pretty good. He was behind some stuff, got the gun on him, and he's coming down at us. And I'm like, I put the crosshairs right on the chest, and I'm like, oh my gosh. He goes, what? I said, I think he's 3. And Lee goes, no way. You know, and he's filming, so he's looking at a little LCD screen. And I said, I think it's the bifurcated deer. So the bifurcated deer is basically, he's got an inside tine on his right side, I believe. That's a bifurcation.
They share the beam.
Yeah, they share the beam. Yep. It's like a second G3. And he's like bladed beams and everything. And I'm like, I click the safety, put the safety gun back on safe, and I'm like, he's 3 years old. I can't kill him. Like, I just could tell the body was. But this deer is toting a 150-inch rack.
He's going to be a stud.
Like, and I pass him, and he walks down in the trees, and Lee looks at me. I'm basically crying. And Lee goes, that was the biggest deer you've ever had to pass. And I said, yeah, you're right, it is. I said, if I was not here and anywhere else, that deer would, because, I mean, we're trying to manage as much as we can as well.
Yeah, what Casey called him No-No.
Yeah, we named him No-No.
He's a No-No.
He's a No-No. Yeah. And then saw some does that night, and then, just after camera light, we're kind of packing up, and I look over, and 5 bucks come out, and right behind us, single file, and one is a mature deer. You can just see frame, can't really tell much other than that, but his body is just huge. So they kind of scamper off, and it gets dark enough, and we get out. So next morning comes, like that night before, we're like, okay, where's everybody going to go?
Mm-hmm.
Chris was going to go in the junkyard.
Yep.
Igloo. I think Chris went back to Igloo because we had a big 9 in there as well.
He said Igloo that night, I know for sure.
Oh, you're right, he did.
At lunch, he came in and sighted the gun in, and then he said Igloo. Casey and I moved a banks over 2 4 corners.
Yep.
And that night, we had a nice 8 that got to the neighbor's property line, tried to jump the fence, looked like he was going to jump the fence twice. A mature 8. And he didn't jump the fence. I mean, literally chest to the fence twice, and then walked down the property line.
Like sniffs the fence, like he's gets his back feet ready.
He got him ready, got in position, and it was like, that looks like too much work.
And honestly, I don't even remember what Chris saw that night. Probably some does and a couple mutton jeffs. And I want to. So we refer to a lot of mutton jeffs of like deer. Mutton jeffs are just like little basket rack, 1.5 year, 2.5-year-old deer. So whenever you hear us say mutton jeffs, they're just little dinks.
They're not named yet.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah. They're not named. So that night I saw those bucks, and then so we get back and we're like, "Where's everybody gonna go?" And Chris is like, "Well, I'm gonna go into the junkyard." And I said, "I'm gonna go back into the beat lab," because I mean, Casey was gonna go to 4 Corners. Didn't really know where else I really wanted to go, and I saw those 5 bucks in there, so I'm like, we'll see what happens. So Lee and I get down in the blind, and we're sitting there. It's cold. I mean, it's like 29, 30 degrees. It was cold morning.
Yep.
And I'm trying to drink coffee, and I feel like every time I take a sip of coffee, a deer comes out or something. It was like, I don't know, a dinner bell to him or
That's
something.
how it works.
It is.
Yeah.
So I look behind us. It finally gets daylight. I look behind us, and I go, Lee Shooter. He's walking right at us, and all I can see is chest and antlers. And I'm like, big deer. And Lee looks back, and he goes, oh, fuck yeah. Like, he was like, he looks at him, he's like, yep, shooter. I pick the gun up, I take the safety off, I put the crosshairs right on him, and I start pulling about 1 pound of pressure, and it takes about 2 pounds to let the gun go off.
Yeah.
And Lee goes, wait, make sure it's not the bifurcated deer. And I'm like, oh. And I look up, And there he is. It's the bifurcated deer. And I'm like, oh my gosh. This deer about just soaked one up.
Yep.
And finally he like turns, and you can see his body, and he's a puppy dog. He comes to 80 yards, and this deer is so big.
Just
like,
showing off
he's
for you.
mid 140s to like could touch 150 as a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And you can tell he's a 3-year-old. You can just know he's not a 4-year-old. We're trying to kill 4-year-olds or bigger. That's what we're trying to do. And I just could not get this deer a day over 3.5 years old.
It's his neck.
It's his neck.
Body, legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could tell.
So he kind of sits there and he kind of works off and whatnot. And it's raining also.
Mm-hmm.
It was raining, I forgot.
Yes.
It's raining and
kind of a nasty day.
It was nasty.
Rain,
Jury.
sleet, trying to snow. It was, I think, at like 9 a.m. or whatever, it was like 35 degrees. It was trying to snow, but it couldn't.
Yep, it was cold, and it was supposed to turn into snow that day, and it did for a brief little stint there. But so anyway, we keep hunting, and it's a little after 8 o'clock, and something catches me out of the corner of my eye. Over to our right is a pond dam. And the pond dam feeds into this island of cedars. And it's probably 3 acres patch of cedars in the middle of a CRP field.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of deer, it seems like for the last 4 years, if you watch deer go into, like they'll come into this, you'll watch them like run or walk for a mile through CRP, and they'll come right to this island every time, and then they spurt out the other side and disperse somewhere. It's just, they just love this island. They love the structure to it.
Yep.
And I think a lot of bucks will cruise the pond dam to check for does and just scent check it. So I catch something out of the corner of my eye over the pond dam, and it's like a deer running down into the cedars. And I'm like, what was that? And I quick grabbed my gun because I didn't know if it was a doe or a buck or whatnot. Excuse me. And no sooner I'm looking for what deer, and it was a doe, runs into I was looking for her running into the island, and I catch something out of the corner of my eye, and I look back, and like jumping the fence on her butt is a buck. And mature buck. Immediately I saw his body, and I'm like, mature shooter. I just told Lee, big deer. And I saw his G2, I saw his beam, and I'm like, Lee, get on him. Like, it's going to happen fast here.
Mm-hmm.
And Lee gets on him. I said, you good? Yep. I stop him. Boom. Shoot. And he runs right into the island. Did big mule kick. Runs into the island. Shot. I felt really good with the shot. And we lost him in the island. But as we lost sight of him, he was kind of like, he was lumbering a little bit. He was like kind of like getting lower. And I'm like, man, I just feel like he's done for, He never came out the other side that we could see. And it was at 8:21 in the morning. And I'm like, wow, like that happened so fast, so fast. And so we're doing our hoot and holler and everything, and everybody's texting us like, we hear AB go boomy, like we have all these sayings or whatever. And JB and Chris weren't far away in the junkyard, and they're like, we hear you, AB, what'd you shoot, what you get, stuff like that.
Yep.
And I have no idea who this deer is. Not a clue.
Yep.
I just know he's big and mature. Not sure how big,
Yep.
And this is where the roller coaster of emotions comes in. And I was really pissed at myself, and I'll explain why. So we get all our cuts done and everything, and I was like, Lee, let's look at the footage. I want to see the shot. I want to go through everything and see what happened. I want to make sure we're not gonna walk up there. It's raining, so there's gonna be no blood.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to. It's basically gonna be a body search. I don't want to get into a scenario where I want to know going into it that he's either gonna be a dead deer or we're gonna be.
Or if you need to be ready.
Yes, exactly. So Lee looks at the shot, and I'm texting and stuff like that. I was texting my wife, texting my dad, and Lee goes, hey, he's like, it's a great shot. I mean, literally right at the point of the shoulder, like right behind, like the deer shouldn't be far. And he's like, I think it's the broken beam deer. And I'm like, really? I said, I feel like he had both beams, He's like, I'm almost positive it's a broken beam deer. We had this broken beam deer in Mission Impossible where Lee and I killed with his bow 3 or 4 days before. He was frequenting up there, which isn't not far from where I was at.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, so this is where I got pissed at myself. Because I kind of got upset that he had a broken beam. And I'm like, well, dang it, like, I was bumming a little bit. And I don't know why. I almost felt like ungrateful.
Yeah.
Like I should have, like, I don't know. I don't know what I was feeling. It was just really weird. Like,
just disappointed a little bit, maybe, that
yeah,
you didn't notice, or I don't know.
But
you shouldn't have been.
The thing is, I went out there for a mature deer.
Yeah.
Inches don't matter to me.
Yep.
We talk in inches because that's just a way to describe a deer.
Yep.
And whenever, especially on a podcast, it's like, well, how big was he? Well, he's a big 8. Well, what he scored? Well, 140. Oh, that's a giant 8. Like, that's just how we do that. So I wasn't going out for a score or anything. I just wanted a mature deer, and he was mature. And I was pissed at myself because I felt like the antler size was taking away from my experience.
Yep.
So I was having a little bit of a pity party, and I'm like, yeah, we sat there for like 15 minutes and just let it rain. It was like we're in no hurry. Chris and JB were gonna come help us, and I started thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? Why are you being a little ass bag like this? And you got put into this situation. You worked your ass off to do this, and you did everything right. And you came here for a goal, and that was to kill a mature deer, and you probably did that.
Yep.
So then I immediately was like, you know what? Screw it. Like, why are you being an asshat?
Yeah. Yep.
But so Chris and JB came, and we walked up there, and so Lee and JB were filming the recovery, and I'm looking for blood and looking for any sign of, like, maybe find some blood. And then we're getting closer to the island, and Lee saw him first, laying there, and he told Chris, and I didn't hear anything, and they let me go a little bit, and then Chris goes, AB, I see. And I go, no, so I'm looking, doing the giraffe neck, where's he at? And Chris goes, he's huge. And I go, what? And I look, he goes, come here. I look over there, and his left side is just, he's laying right there. He went like 40 yards, and I'm like, holy fuck. He's giant. So we walk up there, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the biggest bodied deer. Huge deer. He's got a big Roman nose, scar on his nose. His nose is completely broken.
Crooked.
He's just a fighter.
Yeah.
Just a fighter. And his right beam is broke off. It is broke off just after the G2 on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like pleasantly surprised. I'm like, holy shit. Like, huge bodied deer. Old deer. You could just tell. He was just huge. And we're looking at his rack. He's chocolate racked. I mean, it was raining, so he's a little more chocolate than he would be. But I'm like, wow, this is like crazy. Start counting him up. He's got 11 scoreable with a broken beam. And it's not clicking like who this deer is. It's just like a giant deer. It's a new deer, deer,
Yep.
And so we're like Googling over this thing, and Chris is like, this is huge. This freaking deer's giant. So we do all that stuff and everything, and all the filming, and we load him up, go back to camp, and everybody gathers, all that kind of stuff. And I gutted him out and get him hung up. Obviously had the tag on him in the field, and get him hung up, and 3 deer down so far. So okay, cool. So fast forward to that evening after the evening hunt. Casey and I and the guys, like, we were starting to look at trail cams or whatnot, and I told Lee, I said, you remember that deer that you guys got on camera when you and Adam were down here in bow season? He was like a big mainframe 10, walking away from the camera. And he had a branch in his antlers. He goes, yeah. And I said, is this that deer?
What made you think that?
Because of his frame.
Okay.
Because his left side, the side that he had, the G2 and everything, I just felt like it was like the same kind of frame. That's literally all.
Okay.
And because we didn't know who that deer was.
Right.
So I'm like, well, is that deer?
Mm-hmm.
So we went back and looked, and sure shit, it was him. And he had his complete right side.
Yep.
And that was 10 days before I killed him.
Yep.
And he had, so his G2, he had his G2 and he still has it, but he broke off his G3, which was just over 8 inches or so, we figured.
Yep.
And then he had a bifurcation G3, which was about the same length.
Yep.
So he broke that off, and then he broke the rest of his beam off.
Yep.
So I'm like, oh my gosh, like this thing is
He's
giant,
crazy.
you know?
Yeah.
So then that kind of got the juices flowing. I'm like, I want to see if we know this deer from last year.
Uh-huh.
Casey looks at it and goes, dude, that is Wilson from last year. And I'm like, no way. He goes, yeah, it is. Let me pull it up. And he pulls up the cameras, and he's looking at all these trail cam videos and pictures we have of this deer we named Wilson last year. And it's like almost identical to him last year, but I'm like, there still could be that,
Is it a sibling or?
Yes.
Yeah. You don't know for sure.
And Casey pulls up this picture from last year, and he goes, does he have this notch in his ear? And I got bug-eyed, and I'm like, holy shit, he does. It is the same notch in his ear.
Yep.
100% same deer.
100%.
So then we started thinking about, like, okay, last year, September 19th, 2019, Casey and I were down in Kansas. We're doing a gas and glass one night. We see this deer in the bean field. And all you can see is, like, his nose up of his antlers over the beans. And we're looking, and this deer's giant. It was the first shooter we saw all trip. And I'm filming him with the spot and scope. I'm filming him through the spot and scope or whatnot. And we're like, what do we name him? And I'm like, let's name him Wilson. Like, because I love the movie or the show Home Improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever seen Home Improvement, the neighbor on Home Improvement, he never shows his face. He's always behind the fence or something.
Yep.
So we named him Wilson. Well, we got so many trail cam pictures and videos of that deer last year, and nobody ever got an opportunity at him. And then this year, he shows up, and Lee got a couple pictures of him.
Mm-hmm.
One with full antlers, the other one was like he was broke.
Yep.
So that was kind of cool. So I killed Wilson.
You killed Wilson,
But
he's a tank.
He's a tank. So the ditch that I killed him on is actually the ditch. It's about, I don't know, 400 or 500 yards away from where we saw him first last year. So that was like his haunt where he would run.
Yep.
So it was kind of fitting that he died right there. But
Yep. Just, mass for days. He
So
carries
much mass.
mass from his bases all the way out. Like you said, too, just the chocolate rack is
Yep.
awesome.
yeah, and like I said, the score is not, I've said it before, it's not big to me, but I wanted to know. I wanted to know what he would score, at the way he is right now, and then we could, try to figure out what he broke off and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And as he sits right now, without the rest of his beam and without his G3 and his bifurcated G3, he scores 126 right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 6.5-inch bases. He carries just over 4.5 inches of mass throughout his beams. And he's 16.5 inches wide. His G2s are almost 12, just shy of 12 inches. And then we tried figuring out, so we doubled his beam size. So his good beam was 20.5 inches long. So we doubled that for his right side just to get a rough ballpark.
Yep.
And then we went back to the pictures and the videos we had of him this year of full, antlers.
Yep.
And we tried to judge what his G3 and that bifurcation were. We figured it's around 8 and 7 inches.
Yeah. He's very symmetrical. So
yeah.
the guesstimate is close.
And we doubled his circumferences, so his mass measurements from the one side to the other, and he scores 160 and 2/8.
Yep.
So huge.
Yeah.
I mean, and then when I was caping him out, and the other thing is he's got two big tines that come off his back of his bases that you can't even see.
Yeah.
One's almost 4 inches, the other one's almost 3 inches.
It's almost, when I look at him, it's almost like brow tines got laid backwards off the back of his bases.
Yep. If brow tines were like Play-Doh, and you just took your hands and laid them back.
And laid them down, they flattened.
Yep.
And then they're back on his head.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so if he would have had everything, he would have been a 14 point. But he's an 11 point still, and he's broke off. So he's going to look cool on the wall. I'm going to get him mounted because he's so big. Yeah. I mean, the pictures, I don't really know even if they give him justice because he's missing a beam. But this deer, when you hold him, huge.
Yeah.
And I measured his neck. He's got a 35-inch neck.
Yeah.
And no teeth.
No teeth.
I caped him out, and his front teeth, because I wanted to get him aged, his front teeth, so his bottom teeth in the front there, you take the two front incisors out and send those in to get aged. Literally I've got pictures of it. They are worn down to basically nothing. Well, I dug them out anyway, and I'm going to send them in, see if they can age them still. I don't know if that's like just eating too many salt licks because we're in cattle country. It's a big cattle farm.
Yep.
Or just rotting his teeth. I don't know. Or if he's just literally
that old.
7+ years old. I don't know.
Yeah. It's hard to tell because he improved from last year.
Yes.
So
he did.
It would make you believe that he's still was on his upswing, but
it's hard to tell. I mean, with that mass though,
yeah.
I never thought I'd shoot a deer with bases as big as the Hambinos. No, and I can't remember what the Hambinos bases were, but they were over 6.
Yeah.
But these are 6.5-inch bases.
Yeah. Well, I told you, too, that, like, from the first time I saw him in the back of the Ranger, I'm like, oh, that's great buck. And then you hung him up, and then once you caped him, and I saw pretty much what he would look like as a Euro, completely, like, for me, it was a completely different animal on the table. I'm like, oh my gosh. I don't know if it was just, because the antlers were so chocolatey that it was like brown on brown and there was no contrast, and then all of a sudden it was brown on white, and you're just able to see massive bases. But when I saw that, I was like even more impressed.
It's and like I said earlier, I'm pissed at myself. I'm still pissed at myself because I felt like I got away from, for their first split second, I felt like I got away from why I do this.
Yeah.
The antler size. And I got caught up in it, and I fucking pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's a good deer. He's an old deer. I'm going to, like I said, I'm gonna call Deer Age. I get all my Deer Age through Deer Age and see if they can still age him, because I don't want to send the teeth if I can't get him aged. But he's literally, they were worn down to the gum. Like, he had no front teeth. I don't know how he would eat.
Yeah.
And his teeth on the sides were worn, but there were still teeth there. I don't know.
It'll be interesting if they are able to do it, just to see, how old he is.
Yep.
And it'll be a good tell for other deer that are taken off that property too.
For sure, yeah.
Like, maybe it is because of if there's salt licks and whatever, then you just know that going forward too.
And my gut tells me, so last year and all the sightings we had of him, last year I figured he would be like a 4 or 5-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be completely wrong. I don't know. I mean, that would put him at 5 or 6 this year.
Yep.
But I just don't. I've never seen a deer. The Hambino was 7.5 years old, and his teeth weren't really that worn.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'll be surprised.
Yep. That'll be cool.
So that was basically. Or no, I forgot. Chris killed.
Yep.
So kind of buzzed through the rest of the week. Chris killed the day after me, and that. I don't want to get into that story yet because I want to
have him on.
I'm going to have Chris on to talk about that. We'll either do it on the Humanimal podcast or the Fall podcast. Unbelievable story. Let's just put it this way. Chris killed a really good deer with one of his best friend's guns that had passed away, and he actually killed him on the day that he passed away 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was. You could not write it up any sweeter than that.
Yeah. Yep.
A lot of tears were shed. I'm not gonna lie. When we were filming the recovery, I was like welling up. I was just flexing my triceps. That's what I kept telling everybody.
I didn't know his friend or anything about it, and it was just a completely moving story.
Yeah.
So.
That one definitely, took the cake. That was a big 8. He was probably mid-30s, might touch 140 as an 8.
Yep.
Mature. We figured he was 4 years old. We killed some good deer. I mean, like I said, JB's was a 4-year-old, mid-140s. Cody's, we took his teeth out too because we figured the Warhorse is probably 7, maybe 7
you guys
plus.
have pictures from 2017, so 4 years of history then, and he was not a mutt or a Jeff even at that point.
No.
So.
And so that we killed some mature deer. Casey, unfortunately, did not kill one. We hunted his butt off. Keegan had a bow tag. You hunted your ass off the last 4 or 5 days, self-filming, because everybody went home.
Yeah.
Had an opportunity at some younger deer, like a really good young deer.
Yeah. That was fun.
So.
Yep.
That's about Kansas in a nutshell.
Kansas in a nutshell.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Crazy Kansas.
Yeah. It's fun. Want to do it again next year. I that's the most excited I've been for a gun hunt in a long time, and I don't do a lot of gun hunting, and if I do, it's just late season to get some meat, if I hadn't killed anything or but to actually physically go out with a gun after a buck, it's the first time I've done that since 2013,
forever.
12 or 13, something like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is just the anticipation, right? Where Lee and Adam were there, and the fact that like you guys over the past 3 or 4 years of having the farm have been managing, and what's out there, right?
Yes. Yep.
So that coupled with the fact that Lee and Adam were out there a week to 10 days before, and we're sending pictures daily of all of these bucks that they're seeing, was like you knew what you were walking into.
Yep.
And that had to be exciting. It was exciting. I didn't have a tag, but I was excited to go out and sit and see who was going to show up.
Yep, for sure. No, it was good. It was a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun with the guys, and now it's kind of back to reality. Editing season. We might hit 1 or 2 more late season trips. I might hunt a little bit around home, but it's going to be about the concluder probably for me.
Yeah.
So.
Are you ready for it?
Ready for what?
Ready for season's end, I guess.
I am. I have to go back and look how many days I've been on the road, but it's in the 50s. It might be touching 60 now. But I mean, we've been to Colorado, been to Nebraska, had 2 great hunts there. A lot of cool stories that I haven't really gotten out there yet.
Yeah. Been a busy fellow.
Yeah, I'm tired. A little burnout, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like a little burnout right now, but took it right down to the end, I feel like, and going home a little heavier than we went there with.
That's right.
So, but I guess I'm gonna leave you guys with that little update there. I'm gonna get more on a schedule now, hopefully, getting podcasts out. I've got a lot of cool guests lined up. That's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks. I felt bad that I wasn't getting anything out, so I was actually just trying to get a hold of guests and get them lined up. Got some great guests coming on. But yeah, that's where I'm at with it. So yeah, thanks for the support, everybody. If you could go to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating and some feedback, that'd be much appreciated. Don't forget, we do have a few episodes over on the Humanimal podcast. If you want to listen to some of that goofy content, also go to our YouTube channel, look at those videos. The videos, everything that we've shot this fall is going to start getting edited here soon. So those will start rolling off, here this winter. Once I get closer to knowing when those will be launched, I will let everybody know, because everybody's been asking. So that's about the best update I can give you on that. So do you have anything to sign off with?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Just like Aaron said, go check out the social channels, and we'll keep you informed once we're pumping stuff out.
Yep.
So
definitely, and we're gonna end this podcast, but we're gonna start another one here in a minute to talk about Keegan's mule deer, because I don't even know this story yet. I've been saving it for the podcast. I want to know more about it. We're gonna record this, and yeah. So thank you guys for the support, and hopefully everybody's out there filling their last minute tags. And good luck the rest of the season.